Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Overcoming Illness. I want to welcome everybody from all over the world. So, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm in North Carolina, so it's actually evening here. Anne is in Florida. So, I want to welcome everybody to Overcoming Illness. If you've not seen this show before, I'm Paula Denoncourt. I'm a holistic health coach. Been doing my business since about 2010. I myself suffered from multiple food allergies. I've helped quite a bit in the Lyme disease community. So I help people with food allergies, food sensitivities, autoimmune issues, things like that. Done one-on-one coaching, group coaching, speaking engagements. And I've also put together some ebooks and digital recipe books for people that need to eat things that are gluten-free, dairy-free, low sugar, nut-free, because I had to do it all. So that's a little bit about me. My guest today is a good friend of mine, Anne Lowenthal. We actually met in a business coaching program a few years ago, which I have to say was absolutely life-changing. The people I met there, the things I've learned there. I actually went to two events that same time frame, and just both events were just life-changing. So Anne and I have met there, and a lot has changed since then. Anne has gone through cancer, and she's going to tell us her story today about overcoming cancer and her journey. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Anne, and then we'll just go into some questions, and we'll get started. So if you want to know a little bit more about me, or if you want to see past shows, please watch the replays and please share this because somebody might need to hear this. So Anne is a holistic health coach working primarily with women diagnosed with cancer who chose to take a more holistic or integrative path. She's an almost 5-year cancer survivor, thriver of ovarian cancer, and I am just so happy for her. Anne loves to support her clients in a way that honors her desire to think, create, and learn. She gathers and shares information and resources to help them make the best health decisions for themselves and nurtures their unique qualities as she helps them acquire knowledge and gain skills to best support their wellness goals. Anne loves to learn, is introspective, and gets excited about transforming clients' health to make it better than they could have imagined. She's fascinated by meaningful ideas on a range of wellness topics and always looking to connect the dots. Anne values genuine relationships with clients and deep connections with like-minded people. She speaks passionately, takes care before making decisions and recommendations, and is energized by her positive visions for her clients' future wellness. So welcome, Anne, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Paula. Very happy to be here.
And I'm really glad you are here to tell your story because, like I said, people need to hear this. So let's go. So first, tell us a little bit about yourself. We both actually came from somewhat of the same area. We both lived in Massachusetts, which is what kind of bonded us together when we first met. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and then we'll go into your story of your cancer.
So I've just always been interested in wellness and holistic health, and it's just was so kind of always an underlying passion of mine. I thought at one point I was going to go to medical school, but decided instead to go to business school. I got a joint degree in business and public health, and worked more on the finance side of healthcare for a while, which was not thrilling to me, looking at financial statements and all of that, and dealing more with traditional healthcare institutions. But then when my son was young and I left my job, I became a yoga teacher and sound healer, and really started to explore more of these alternative forms of healing. I did the same integrative Institute of Integrative Nutrition program. I did it. I was in their first online class and then have followed up with lots of other certifications, functional diagnostic nutrition, and various. I'm a lifelong student. I love learning, as you read, and continue to learn more, improve myself, be able to help other people. And cancer was something that, it's interesting because I was just sort of continually drawn to that. I actually took a microbiology class in college on cancer. And then a bunch of the additional classwork I had done were things related to cancer and, books I was reading, whatever. So it was almost like I somehow knew I had to prepare myself. Even though,
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
I think, no, I'm living a healthy life. This isn't going to happen to me. But I did feel fairly well prepared when I got the diagnosis, which was now almost 5 years ago. It'll be 5 years next month.
So when you started to study health, what do you feel like drew you to that? Like, what was your why? Like, did you feel like, were there other people around you getting sick and you're like, why are they getting sick? How can I help them? What was your why? Like, my why was, hey, I almost died. I got multiple food allergies and I had to help myself. But what was your why? Was there people getting sick around you and you wanted to help them? What was your why?
Well, again, I would say this started when I was a teenager, when I think of like some of the books I was reading then or when I was in college. And I think I was just always skeptical of the more traditional healthcare that, you're just given pills or whatever and not getting to the root causes of illness. So, I just tend to question everything. And that's, just sort of my baseline, like, why should I take that? Why should I do this? But I did also have parents who had a number of health issues, and mom who had a stroke in her early 60s.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that explains a lot. Yeah. Did your dad have issues too? Health issues?
Yes. Yeah, they were both very unhealthy, certainly through their lives.
Yeah, usually there's an underlying reason why we fall into something like that, whether it's about ourselves or like my last guest, Miss Lorena, she had health issues in her family. If you guys didn't see it, go back and watch the replay. But her brother had cancer, so that drew her to want to help with cancer as well. So there's always an underlying reason, but regardless of that, let's talk about now. We met, we started going to this amazing business coaching program, and then unfortunately,
5.5 years ago.
Yeah. Because you found out you had cancer. So tell us about that.
During the program, we were in the middle of the program. I just felt a lump or a mass in my pelvis one day that, I hadn't felt before and was very concerned. And I first went to a doctor who thought it was fibroids, and I just wasn't very confident, and she wasn't a gynecologist. So that same week, and this all happened very fast, I went to a gynecologist who I had never seen before because at that point I didn't have one. And I happened to find this doctor. It's hard to just get an immediate appointment, because if they do obstetrics, they're booked months in advance if you're not pregnant. But I saw the founder of a practice who was in his 80s and the most amazing man. And he also didn't think it was cancer at first, but he sent me for an ultrasound at what he said was the top pelvic ultrasound place in the country that happened to be, it was in Brookline, Mass, so very close to my house. And during the ultrasound, they actually had doctors. You didn't just see a tech. A doctor came in, and she told me this was my ovaries. So at that point, I spoke to the gynecologist that night, and he wanted to set up an immediate appointment for me to go to a surgeon at Dana-Farber and, get started with all that. And I just was like, no. I just, I mean, I think my immediate reaction was, yes, I want to have surgery, but no, because he was like, talking about chemo. There was no way I was doing chemo. It just like, I knew that immediately. But as I was thinking about it that night, it was a Friday night, I just started to open up browsers with all these different health clinics, cancer clinics I knew in Mexico and, other kinds of programs. And I definitely had a fear of surgery because I had, read that surgery can spread the cancer. And I just did not want to have surgery anyway. Like I had never had surgery other than like fairly minor procedures. And it was just like, I don't want to do this. So, I started looking up all the clinics because I had watched a docuseries called The Truth About Cancer a few years before that. And I actually had the transcripts from it because I wasn't going to sit and watch hours and hours again, but I had the transcripts and I was going through and, looking up these clinics. And when I found Hope for Cancer, it just resonated with me. It's like the next day I was able to get a phone appointment with an admissions counselor. And I just decided this is what I'm doing. My husband was like, what? Like I didn't even want to go talk to the surgeon because I just didn't want someone putting these ideas in my head, and all these things you hear people are told by doctors if they say they're going to Mexico or whatever. So by the next day, Sunday, I had all our plans made to go to Mexico for 3 weeks. And it was crazy. My husband was able to work from down there and we left, I think it was like that Wednesday, and I was there starting treatment on Thursday for 3 weeks. So it all happened very fast. And in a way, when I think back, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But it, and I'm someone who, it can be hard for me to make decisions and whatever, but this was just like, I knew this was what I needed to do.
Wow. So you did eventually have surgery in the US to remove the tumor. How would you describe the differences in the environment, staff, patients, etc., between a typical US hospital and the clinic in Mexico?
So yeah, I was at the clinic from kind of mid-August through the beginning of September. And again, I so didn't want to have surgery. And, I came home after the 3 weeks of the clinic and was doing all the aftercare kinds of things, plus additional things. And, but I did agree to go talk to a surgeon. And it felt like he wasn't the right fit if I were going to have surgery, but I kind of went ahead and planned for that. But, I had to have a CT scan because they won't remove the cancer unless they can see, I guess, that it hasn't spread further, because at that point they want to recommend or tell you to do chemo, which thankfully it hadn't spread, because I don't know where I would have been at that point because I wasn't going to do the chemo. But yeah, by, I guess, October, I had a phone call with the director of the founder and medical director of the clinic in Mexico, because I wanted his opinion on whether I should have the surgery, because I had another doctor at the clinic telling me to hold off. And, it's like most people were telling me, just get the damn surgery. And I didn't want to. And so anyway, I had a call with him where he went through everything. We talked, and he thought it was now a good time, that like my body was prepared, like, just get it removed and then continue on with everything you're doing. So I was supposed to have surgery at one hospital, and they messed up the date because it was two kind of massive organizations that needed to coordinate. And I just took that as a sign that when I was there for the pre-op testing, that this was not the right place to do this, because again, I really didn't like that surgeon. He had a great reputation, but he was like a surgery savant, like no human emotions, just kind of freaked me out. And I really didn't like, this was, the big cancer center in Boston. I did not like the vibe there at all. And so my husband was freaking out that I wasn't going to have the surgery. And we ended up, like a friend of a friend, someone who was an acquaintance, worked at Mass General and found me the most amazing surgeon. She was wonderful. And, her staff loves her, her patients love her. I could not have found a better surgeon. And I just felt much better about having the surgery there. So that was early December that I did that. And that's the only traditional treatment I've done. And she really respected my wishes with that. I did a few follow-ups with her after that, and she was just incredibly supportive and encouraging of what I was doing, which was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I ended up, the month after surgery, I went back to Mexico for my first follow-up at Hope for Cancer. I've now been back 10 times for follow-ups, but that was my first one. And, because I wasn't going to do chemo, I knew like there was a great chance that there were still cancer cells in me because they removed a huge tumor. And I knew I needed to do something fairly aggressive. So Hope for Cancer put me on a number of protocols. I was needing to get multiple types of injections almost every day. And things like mistletoe, which tends to be used more in Europe, but some of the Mexico clinics use it. I think there are some places in the US that use it. But yeah, there were shots of the mistletoe.
Mistletoe is an herb, correct? Mistletoe is an herb.
I believe so. Well, it's a plant, definitely. But
Right.
yeah, there are, I know people in the US even who have been treated here with it. It's very supportive of a number of things, reducing pain, anti-cancer properties. There was another therapy I did with something called GC-MAF, which is not allowed in the US. That's doctors have been closed down and have disappeared, shall we say, over using it in the US. But that has, again, there's a lot of research in other countries. The GC-MAF, I think, comes from Japan, the mistletoe, I believe, from Germany. There's a lot of literature on these. And, I was just doing a number of things. I was on a very strict nutrition plan, lots and lots of supplements. So I did that fully for 3 months and then went back and things were looking really good. And then we kind of ramped down some of that. But yeah, I go back generally every 6 months. This last time I waited 9 months to go back. Each time things, I get the clear, signal that there's no cancer, but we continue to work on the root causes, which there are always things to work on, heavy metal, detoxification, just all kinds of different things. So I still am doing a number of protocols from them. And I have a really supportive doctor here in St. Pete, Florida, who is not as knowledgeable about cancer, but very, very knowledgeable and, about some of the underlying things I'm working on. So I feel that it's great that my doctor here and my doctors there are, each supportive of me seeing the other, and everything kind of lines up.
So just for everybody watching, full disclosure, this is not medical advice, just so, just full disclosure. These are Anne's experiences and what she's learned and researched. So I just want to put that out there. Anything I say, anything Anne says, this, I'm not a nutritionist, dietitian, doctor, any of that, but, this is her experiences. So just want to put that out there. Full disclosure.
I would never tell someone else what to do.
Right.
I just like to make people aware that there are alternatives to conventional medicine. And some of these things there are people who are doing more traditional treatments like chemotherapy who are using a number of the things I'm using in addition. So, I just knew from me that I wasn't going to do the chemo and knew I had to be aggressive in other ways. And everything, all of the protocols at Hope for Cancer are non-toxic, which, was, for me, it just was the most irrational thing that, you would poison your body when clearly there's an issue with your immune system, because
Right.
you really can't have cancer unless there's an issue with your immune system. Your immune system should catch it and get rid of it. So, to have a huge tumor, clearly there were issues with my immune system, and to try to treat it by poisoning myself was just nonsensical.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Everyone needs to make their own decision.
What works for you. Absolutely.
It's unfortunate, though, that people aren't given anything other than the,
well, traditional medicine is pushed on us, right? I mean, it's what we're brought up with.
Is there a license for recommending something that's not considered standard of care?
So tell us a little bit about Hope for Cancer.
Yeah, I didn't fully answer your question with that. Sorry.
Yeah.
So walking in there, it's just
walking in those doors. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first, just contrast. So I had my surgery at Mass General, and the surgeon was incredible, and I received wonderful care there. But anytime, and this was even before I had cancer, walking into a hospital just kind of freaks me out. It's just disease care management. You look at the different signs, and you see all the disease names. It's not really healthcare. So, and it just, like I said, kind of freaks me out being in that kind of environment. Walking into Hope for Cancer, and I went to the Cancun facility. They also have one in Tijuana, but it's this very modern, beautiful facility in the hotel zone in Cancun. And you walk in every day, and the receptionists are coming and giving you hugs, and you get hugs every day from your doctors and all the staff. It's just the most loving, supportive environment. People there are very optimistic. I mean, I was there in my 3-week stay with a woman with stage 4 lung cancer who is still alive. And but it's not that heavy feeling that I would imagine, like if you go into a chemotherapy room. And some of it, I think, is just the people. It's interesting because it really does attract people who are, if I have to kind of summarize or lump people together, but most of them are religious Christians. I'm not Christian, but many people sat there reading the Bible and the Hebrew Bible. I'm Jewish, and they would sit there and just, I think it just sort of gives them another kind of way of looking at their situation and comfort. So it was a very positive environment. And overall, I mean, there were some people there who were kind of terrified, people who had been dealing with cancer for a long time, done all of the traditional stuff. I think it makes a big difference if you are doing it sort of as a last resort or getting there right away, which a number of us at the time, did this first. But really positive, gorgeous environment. You're sitting in the IV room for a few hours a day, looking out at the bay, Cancun Bay, and all the boats and everything. So, and after my day at the clinic, I would go back to the resort across the street where, most gorgeous beach. We go on beach walks. The turtles were hatching when I was there. So like every few days, they'd be digging up these baby turtles, and you could watch them release them into the ocean at sunset. It was, I would feel like I was on vacation when I wasn't at the clinic, and I felt good. Sometimes I was kind of wiped out. Some of the treatments do tire you, like full body hypothermia, where you're just you're lying in your own sweat and just, it raises your body
what is
temperature.
that? Full body hypothermia.
So it's basically, they call it the pizza oven. And you kind of slide into this thing where basically the goal is to give you a fever. So, it was done in centigrade, but basically I think it would get my temperature up to like 102, 103.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like I said, you're just lying there bathed in your own sweat. For many of us, this is the hardest treatment to do because it just,
Mm-hmm.
Torture.
Yeah.
But and you get out and you put on a robe. You can't get in your clothes because for a long time you're just sweating after that. But
Wow.
the idea behind that, so a number of the treatments are using heat because cancer cells can't withstand the heat the way normal cells can. So that
Mm-hmm.
a number of therapies rely on heat, either applied locally or full body or saunas. And then there are other therapies that are using oxygen, like
Hyperbaric.
hyperbaric oxygen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hyperbaric oxygen, ozone. You're getting ozone put into your blood they withdraw like 2 huge things of your blood and then are injecting ozone into it and then running it through something that cleans the blood, and then it's put back in use. You're getting ozone in your body that way. You're getting it rectally, after your coffee enemas. So yeah, lots of different treatments.
So they did coffee enema.
Yeah, every day.
Okay.
Once a week, can I think of the name? It's like a colon hydrotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get that instead of the coffee enemas, because the coffee enemas aren't to clean out your colon. It's really to support your liver, especially when you're detoxing, from a lot of these treatments. So it supports your liver. It helps your body produce more glutathione, which is a master antioxidant. So yeah, it's a very full day. They have an incredible MD there who works on kind of the more emotional aspects of healing. She does acupuncture as well, but she does something called recall healing, which is a very unique form of therapy that it's also called German New Medicine. Really fascinating, the things you kind of are encouraged to think about in your past and with your ancestors. It brings a lot into that. So it's really, they have a number of healing principles. You're getting really healthy, great food when you're there, juicing, all of that. Really
do they
good
do whole foods there too? Because my learning was based on Hippocrates Health Institute.
Mhm.
I took a whole raw food course on that. I didn't go there, but I learned a lot about it. So is it all raw foods there, like Hippocrates?
No, so it's interesting because I'm actually doing a certification with Hippocrates
Oh,
also,
nice.
because it was interesting to me. I wanted to learn more about sprouting and just all
Yeah,
of their principles. So I'm doing that online.
nice.
No, so the clinic, it's interesting because, having attended various cancer conferences, holistic cancer conferences, things that like Truth About Cancer does, and exploring this so much, there are so many ideas about the right diet for a cancer patient. And of course we're all different anyway, and we have different kinds of cancers, but people tend to be absolute, like you should do a raw vegan diet, or you should do just juicing, or you should do a keto diet, or all these different things. It's interesting because the founder of our clinic, Dr. Tony Jimenez, believes in more of a like Garden of Eden diet. It's mainly plant-based, whole foods. There are some grains. there's no added sugar, but there are definitely treats, things made with fruit. They do serve occasional eggs there. It's not, what would be the word? It's not as orthodox or like this is the way to eat as other places. But and basically you have breakfast and lunch at the clinic in Cancun, the one in Tijuana, all your meals are there. But for dinner, you're eating at your hotel or local restaurants, and which is somewhat hard in Cancun to find very healthy food. But it was interesting for me because I would see some people, we at times did meals, a bunch of us from the clinic, and seeing what people were eating when they weren't at the clinic, but they were still down there, with very serious conditions. And like for me, I love the food at the clinic. I would love to have their chef come live with me and make me all my food.
Yeah, I remember seeing some pictures you would post.
Yeah, the green juices, like people didn't want to drink it. Like you have to embrace this. I mean, for me, it wasn't that different from the way I normally eat.
Right.
But it was interesting because when I went back for my first follow-up, my doctor there put me on more of a modified keto diet for a few months. And and then I ended up studying with a woman who advocates that, who works at a holistic cancer clinic in California, because I felt like I needed support for that, because that was so foreign to me. It was very high fat diet, but trying not to eat animal protein other than some fish. So it was somewhat challenging, but I did that pretty much for the 3 months. But yeah, there are like so many theories on how to eat, and the whole keto thing, I think they have some evidence that it helps with glioblastoma, very aggressive brain cancer. There are people who are studying this. There actually was a woman doctor who I had seen in some holistic movies who was advocating a vegan keto diet, and I was almost gonna work with her for a while, but yeah, I mean, it's confusing.
Yeah.
Sure. And in terms of all the supplements, and one thing that's helped for me is Hope for Cancer had me do a very specific panel of genetic testing, and they now have a nutritionist on staff there, and we worked on specifics for my genetics, and then my doctor took a lot of that into account as well, prescribing supplements. But yeah, overall, like, each time I go back to Hope for Cancer, like if I had to walk into Mass General or any hospital at this point, I still would get that trepidation. But I go into Hope for Cancer and I don't feel that way. I mean, it is a little nerve-wracking going back each time for testing. They do a very comprehensive ultrasound each time, and blood work, and a thermogram, and something called autonomic response testing, which is fascinating, developed by Dr. Klinghardt. So, it's somewhat scary getting all the testing, but I just have such warm feelings being there. It's sort of like my second home. And, I love the staff. And just always meet very like-minded people. It's interesting because you just sit down and talk to them with everything that's going on in the world in the last few years, and people are very polarized, but I tend to find a lot of very like-minded people there in terms of how they think about wellness and our body's ability to heal and all of that.
Did you find, like in the past couple of years when you went back, did you find people going through COVID and cancer?
So I was actually 2 summers ago nervous to go down there just because, no one was traveling and everything was so crazy. The good thing at that point, the planes were empty, and I had a friend who had gone for a follow-up the month before and, had listened to some webinars that Dr. Jimenez had done on, his flights down there and kind of what to expect in their COVID protocols. And I ended up feeling comfortable going. I think they have had some people come down with COVID when they're there, but for the most part, things have been fine. The clinic closed for a few months early on in COVID because all the hotels were closed. At least in Cancun. I'm not sure. Tijuana may have stayed open because it was, that's more of it's an inpatient facility. But in Cancun, all the hotels closed down. So it did close for a few months. But, they had COVID protocols in place. They still have some, but, they call you before you come down. They ask you all these questions. They are definitely checking you out when you arrive. And
sounds like an amazing place. Like I said, I learned a lot about Hippocrates, and it sounds a little bit more, and I could be wrong because I didn't attend Hippocrates, let's be clear, but I took a class from Betsy Bragg, who is in Boston, who's been to Hippocrates numerous times. So she would just tell us everything about it. And, of course, some people that took the class also told us about it. But it sounds like Hope for Cancer is much more advanced than Hippocrates.
Hope for Cancer is almost exclusively focused on cancer. They have started to treat some autoimmune and other issues. They may be doing something with Lyme coming up. But Hippocrates, obviously has worked with a lot of people with cancer, but it is more exclusively nutrition based. I mean, they're doing some other things too with detoxification.
Yeah, they do some. Yeah.
But I mean, Hope for Cancer, Dr. Jimenez and his research staff travel the world constantly, conferences and visiting other clinics around the world, and just do exhaustive research on treatments being used elsewhere, and are very selective on what they're bringing into the clinic. Again, I felt for me, I knew I needed to deal with this aggressively, but didn't want the traditional approach. So I couldn't imagine doing, like, I know people who've healed themselves of cancer just doing a macrobiotic diet, or doing any one of a number of things, but I wouldn't have felt comfortable just doing something like that. This was a lot more comprehensive and really medical based, but again, everything being non-toxic.
Well, you were already on when I met you, you were already doing macrobiotics and already, so you needed more aggressive, something more aggressive, because you were already healthy as it was. So you definitely
it's interesting because people will always say, especially I'm on all these Facebook groups with other women with ovarian cancer, and people will always write like, I know someone who did, holistic treatments and they died, which always gets me because, first of all, the number of people I know who've done chemotherapy and died is much bigger. But holistic could be anything, it could be having a shaman pray over you. It could be using homeopathy. I mean, it could be anything and everything. And, I've really taken Hope for Cancer is very multifaceted in terms of what they're doing. And then, I've done other things for a while. I was doing medical cannabis in a tincture that I had made especially for me. I've tried and done so many different things, trying not to overdo it, because I think you can do too much, but really trying to incorporate everything that I felt my body needed. I actually already had a infrared sauna before I was diagnosed with cancer. So I started using that more aggressively. Then when we moved to Florida, I had to sell that because I know I was going to have room. It was like a big cedar sauna, but I bought a portable one that's just to my side here that, definitely does the trick in a half hour, drenched in sweat. I think it is really important to continually detox. I know for me, heavy metals is an issue. And I really suspect that if you tested 100 or 1,000 or whatever number random people in this country, they're all going to have heavy metals. I mean, it's just no way you can escape it. But for me, I had a lot of amalgam fillings at one point, and ate a lot of fish and all that. So I think that that's a major root cause for me that I'm continually working to address.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an uphill battle, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure. Well, thank you for telling us like what Hope for Cancer is really all about. Because there might be people out there, going back and forth. Do I go to right now it's harder than ever to go to hospitals and to get treatment and all that with COVID going on. So, I mean, it's still out there. So it's harder than ever. So it's another option for people out there,
And I'm always happy to speak with people who are considering it. I mean, the clinic definitely, I've told them, and that I'm happy to talk to people, and they've sent me people who want to talk to a patient. It is very helpful. I actually, that weekend when I was making all my plans, I spoke to a woman who had been at Hope for Cancer, and she was very inspiring and encouraging, and that was important. I would say almost more so for my husband getting comfortable with the decision than for me. But yeah, I'm always happy to speak with people who.
Okay. So at the end, we'll give Anne's information and how you can reach out to her. We just have a couple more questions, and then I'll see if I don't think there's a lot of people watching, but if you're not commenting, I don't know who's on here, so I can't say anything. So feel free to make a comment or a question. So what type of diet or nutrition program is right for cancer patients? I think you kind of touched on this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I even struggle with this because I was telling Anne earlier, something that keeps coming up a lot for me is breast cancer. And I've done talks on breast cancer. But, even different types of cancer, we hear a lot, low sugar is best. So we touched upon that a little bit with keto because keto is low sugar. So Anne, how would you answer that question?
Yeah, we did touch on it quite a bit, but I think so much of it is individual. And there are some, I definitely know of one woman I follow who is a cancer nutritionist. So she works to help people. I actually haven't consulted with her. I think to some extent, for someone who, generally eats healthy, I think some of it is kind of needing to go with what feels right to you. But, definitely, I think one thing like all of these diets have in common is eliminating processed food.
Right.
That's a huge, I hardly ever go into a traditional grocery store. I tend to shop more in the like Whole Foods kind of stores. But I had to go in one yesterday, and you walk up and down the aisles, and it's just
a lot,
a vast wasteland of junk. So, it's just incredible how people eat and feed their kids in this country. So, as much as possible, eliminating, or, I would say making it total, if you have a cancer diagnosis, eliminating the processed food, eating whole foods, and then kind of seeing how your body reacts to meat. If it's meat, it should be, grass-fed, organic, all of that kind of thing. How your body reacts to grains. I mean, one thing I kind of found over time, as much as I love macrobiotic food, it's too heavy in grains, I think, for me. And, like in macrobiotics, they always say, it's not a meal if you don't have grain. No, that meal, that word actually means grain. So I just think it's too much for me and tends to cause cravings for me. And I think a lot of people, I know someone now who had all kinds of inflammatory issues, who's on a carnivore diet. She didn't have cancer, but on a carnivore diet, all she eats is meat.
That's not good.
But I could never do that. But she's lost a lot of weight. Not that I thought of her as overweight before, but she's lost a lot of weight. She looks great and she feels terrific. She's doing that for 3 or 4 months. To me, like, I can't imagine doing that. And everything I know, I don't think that's a healthy way to eat, certainly long term. I'm doing now more of actually a fruit diet, like a good part of my day. I'm just eating fruit based on a woman I'm working with who's an acupuncturist um, and works with people on this kind of meal plan. And then the medical medium is someone, Anthony William, who I follow extensively. And his stuff always just seems intuitively like it just resonates with me. And I love his recipes. And, it tends to be mainly vegan, although he's not pushing a vegan diet on anyone. But yeah, I think there's a lot of information out there. And but you don't want to get too hung up on it. Clearly refined sugar is not good.
Right.
There are a lot of different thoughts. There are people who think you shouldn't even eat a piece of fruit. But Dr. Jimenez at Hope for Cancer always talks about how your body reacts differently to fruit sugar versus refined sugar. There's something about the molecules being like left-handed or right-handed, or like there's actually a scientific basis for that. And, again, people like medical medium and this doctor I'm talking to on the east coast of Florida, like think fruit is the most healing thing for your digestive system to reduce inflammation. So
it's so conflicting because I know when I went to integrative nutrition, Paul Pitchford, Healing with Whole Foods, insisted upon like no fruit sugar for any illness. So I tend to
you could go crazy. You could go crazy with this, and you kind of have to look at long-term results. And, some of what I'm doing now is based on, if you look at our teeth, we're not carnivores. We're not herbivores. And we're really not even omnivores. Like my dog is an omnivore. My teeth are not like we're really like gorillas who are mainly eating fruit and, other plant-based foods, probably some small amount of animal protein, and that's what our teeth are like. And you look at an animal in its natural habitat, that's what it's eating. So, I think everyone kind of has to figure what works best for them.
Yeah, I agree.
There is a lot of help out there.
Another thing that helped me too, even with cravings, is getting more greens, GREENS, in my diet, because that's so good for you. It's good for the blood, all of that. Yeah. So we've got about almost 10 minutes left. So why don't you give 3 tips that will, you've given some along the way already, but some 3 tips of what can help somebody out there that's going through cancer. And then we'll wrap it up, and then you can let everybody know how they can reach you.
Okay, so you had asked me for 3 tips that I sent you. I don't have them in front of me right now. Okay. So I could come up with other things, but I'm just looking to see, actually.
I can go over them
to remind me. I think the first was related to, I think, thermography.
Yeah, the first one was European regulation thermography regulation.
Right. So I had European thermography at a naturopath's clinic in Brookline, Mass, before I had cancer. It was actually a few months before, and it was interesting because it kind of was a big red flag, although she didn't think from that I had cancer, but clearly there was a lot of toxicity that showed up on that. And then I went to Hope for Cancer, and they do the same kind of thermography. It's hard to find it. Like, I don't think there's any place located near me in Florida that does it. There are a lot of places that do thermography, but it's the camera, which is, definitely used a lot for women as either an alternative or an additional thing in from mammography.
Yeah.
But that is not nearly as comprehensive as the regulation thermography. And so Hope for Cancer does it, like I said. And I think it can really alert you to things going on in your body way before any other any diagnostic test is going to show you have cancer. At
I
least
want to go there and just hang out. I wanted to see all this stuff. Sounds great.
Yeah,
okay,
there
so-
are people who've done videos. I think actually Dr. Axe.
Yeah.
Josh Axe. No, not Dr. Axe. Dr. Oh, what is his name? One of the other ones. I can't think of his name right now. He actually was there, and one of the patient support people took him all around the clinic. I should see if I can find you that video. It's really fascinating to see. But yeah, I think that's a really important test that, whether or not you're doing mammograms or other diagnostic tests, it's incredibly comprehensive what's going on in your brain and all your organs. So I would really advise people to try to find someone who does the European thermography.
That sounds really interesting. So the next one was about moving your lymph every day. So tell us about that.
Right. So this is something else I actually started before I found out I had cancer, right before, is lymphatic drainage. And there are a lot of different ways it can be done. The way I had it at that same naturopath's office was the best. And I don't have anyone down here near me who does this, but he used this machine made in Switzerland that had suction and light and color, and then there was a lot of manual stuff going on too, where the therapist would basically, like, I would feel like I was a turkey being basted. She'd be brushing all these potions on me and then using this machine in her hands and getting very personal, like my whole body. And it really moves the lymph. I think especially a lot of women, and certainly anyone with breast cancer or thyroid issues, just has lymph congestion. The lymph is our other kind of circulatory system. It doesn't have a pump the way, the blood has the heart. And so you need to do stuff to move it. And this was just an amazing way to get that done. In terms of daily things, a rebound trampoline is great. And a vibration plate. They had one at Hope for Cancer in Mexico. I have one here. And so, anything you can do, even going out for vigorous walks, like you just don't want to be sedentary.
Right.
But
she had breast cancer, and then she was a massage therapist, and so she got certified to do lymph massage because of the breast cancer. Yeah,
there are a number of people who do that type of lymphatic drainage with massage. I thought the other, because I have had that as well, the other with the machine was definitely superior. If anyone's in the Massachusetts area, they're actually no longer in Brookline. They're more, I can't remember the two towns, but sort of like more Westboro, kind of, west of Boston area.
Framingham, Newton. No, you lived in Newton.
Yeah, no, this is further out west. There are 2 locations for the clinic, but yeah, it's a really great place. The therapist who does the thermography and the lymphatic drainage is the most incredible woman. She actually was a drainage engineer.
Wow.
Profession. And this is basically like the lymph system is your sewer system.
Yeah.
And yeah, those were the most amazing treatments. I thought I was going to have one when I was back in Boston in September, and ended up, she was away when I was there, and then I was going to go to someone else, and that person canceled on me. But yeah, I wish I could get those regularly. But yeah, even just a lymphatic drainage massage is definitely very helpful.
So I think you touched upon this already. You just talked about not if you got a serious diagnosis, you don't have to rush into a treatment decision if it's not life-threatening. And you just said take some time to research. So I think you kind of touched upon that already, about researching everything, and, you don't have to do what modern medicine tells you to do. It's look at all other options, we should say. Look at all your options. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the tendency is that they try to rush people, like, if you don't do this immediately,
Mm-hmm.
you're
Yeah.
going to die. But chances
Yeah.
are it's been growing in you for a long time. And, again, it's like different if, you have a major blockage or something like that. But
Right.
it is worth looking into alternative approaches. I definitely recommend the Truth About Cancer. They have a number of different docuseries now, and a lot of
Yeah,
really good
a little bit
information.
of that. I haven't watched every single one, but yeah, I did watch a little of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's definitely, a big growing issue out there. There's all different types of cancer. But
And
it's
rates
not.
have gone up a lot in the last, let's say, year and a half.
It's,
Unfortunately, yeah, there are doctors who, pathologists who've talked about this, that, and, I've heard from people at the clinic that a certain medical intervention, which has been forced on a lot of people, had caused cancer to return and new cancers to form. So it's definitely
and we
something.
didn't even touch upon, the other issue that can contribute to cancer or any illness, and that's our emotions. So we have to learn to recognize that, and, is that contributing? So.
Right, and that was, something I think all of the good clinics address. And Hope for Cancer, like I said, Dr. Leslie does the recall healing. And, again, when I look at the people who've done well versus those who haven't, and a number of people I was in Mexico with for, or overlap with me for the 3 weeks, ended up dying within that first year or more. But I think if you're going to do something like Hope for Cancer, doing it as the first line, or, you may need to have surgery, but, not doing a lot of the traditional treatments first, which weaken your body, make it that much harder
Right.
to
Right.
get to balance your immune system, and then being willing to address what can be painful emotional issues.
Yeah.
Dr. talks about this a lot. I think his next book, he does have a book called Hope for Cancer, which I very much recommend, but he's writing another book, I think, dealing more with the emotions.
Emotional side. Yeah.
Huge issue.
So we've only got about 2 minutes left. So tell everybody what you're up to now, what's going on, what you're doing, what your practice is, what you're practicing, and how they can reach you. And then while you're doing that, if anyone has any questions, please put them up on the screen, and we'll try to answer them real quick.
So the best way to reach me is with my email, which is my first name, Anne, ANNE, at Anne-Lowenthal, LOWENTHAL.com, Anne at Anne-Lowenthal.com. And, if you want to speak to me about the clinic or have any questions. I also have been putting together a resource list of books and docuseries and other, websites, other resources I recommend, and I'd be happy to send that out to you if you just email me and request that. Yeah, I have quite the library on health books in general, but, specifically related to cancer. And there were certain books that I read when I was in Mexico for the 3 weeks that were really helpful. And yeah, I'm happy to share all these resources with people. That's kind of my superpower, I think, collecting resources. I'm also doing a strengths coaching certification right now. There's a test called the Clifton Strengths Test, which is fascinating, ranks 34 strengths that come in 4 different domains: strategic thinking, executing, relationship building, and influencing. And really tells a lot about you and helps you love yourself instead of trying to be who you're not, how you can do everything in a way that honors your desires.
Mm-hmm.
So, anxious to share information on that as well. So definitely reach out to me at anne-lowenthal.com.
I think Anne needs her own like video series to teach on some of these things. You are a
Well, interview,
knowledge.
Paula. I think you've
Yeah.
inspired me. Maybe I'll do the same. And
Yeah, no, you need to like do like little tidbit, little video clips of all this information that you have. It's definitely needed. People need all the help they can get. There's so many different types of cancer. It's not a death sentence like in the old days, like people used to think. No illness is a death sentence. Let me just say that. There are ways to help yourself. We just have to find what works for us or you, whoever's out there listening. So,
and sometimes it requires drastic lifestyle changes. So
it does.
It's interesting because sometimes people are, oh, I couldn't do that. That's too drastic. Right. It's like, but you're willing to have your chest split open and your heart stopped and or whatever, it is they're doing. It's like, how drastic is that? But yeah, that's, it doesn't, I think some people sort of want to get on, like, this is what I found at the cancer center that I decided not to have surgery. It's like you get on this conveyor belt and you just hand your body over to them. And it really doesn't require, I mean, you're going to feel awful, but it doesn't require a lot of effort on your part. And I think one of the things that has been shown for cancer and other serious health issues is that people who advocate for themselves do much better. People have a supportive system of friends and family do much better. But, I think especially advocating for yourself, I probably drove a lot of people at the clinic crazy. I think for the most part, they were okay with it. But, I just ask questions on everything. I want to understand why we're doing something, how we're doing it, when we're doing it. And I'd ask other people, oh, when are you starting this? And they would just have no idea. Like, I'm just very proactive with my health. And I think it makes all the difference.
Definitely. You definitely have to be your own advocate. I don't care what you're dealing with. It's, because you know your own body. Only you do. They know some of the basics, they know some of the specifics, but no two people are the same. Things that work with food allergies for me may not work for you. I mean, it's just everybody's slightly different. So anyway, we are at the top of the hour here, so we will wrap it up. And I want to thank you so much for being on today. I'm so glad that you're doing amazing. And you can, once again, reach out to her. If you are going through cancer, if you know somebody going through cancer that she could help, reach out to her. If you know somebody with food allergies, food sensitivities, autoimmune issues, then I'm your girl. We're both health coaches, but we both have our own little niche there. So happy to help in any way I can. For me, reaching out to me, the best way is actually Facebook Messenger or IG Messenger. Or you can go on my website, just text me. I'll set up a time to talk to you if you text me. Not going to just text back and forth, but we'll set up a time. So those are the best ways to reach me. So once again, thank you. We have some great upcoming shows. So we are here every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So please stay tuned for next Sunday. And we have some great upcoming people with some great stories to tell. So I'm looking for more people to tell their stories. So please reach out to me for that as well. And we are going to be having sponsors soon as well. So thanks again, Anne.
Thank you, Paula. It was a pleasure. I'm so glad we kept in touch.
Yes, me too. And we will stay in touch. Absolutely. All right, you guys. So we are ending the broadcast, and I will see you next week. Thank you, everyone who joined and the replay viewers. Good night.